Have you ever done nothing wrong and still found yourself at the, let's say, shit end of the proverbial stick? Maybe you're in high school, just need to use the restroom, but unfortunately, somebody's always fighting in there, doing assortments of drugs that they are very stingy with, or doing something else weird. Maybe your local Walmart moves where all the Fairlife shakes are, and maybe you refuse to ask anyone, hey, where's that milk at? But you find it eventually, because you're kind of just like that, but now the chocolate ain't as plentiful. Is it just a case of wrong place, wrong time, or is it something else, something more sinister in nature?
But I know a little bit about insurance. I used to run insurance scams and stuff like that.
Have you procured a curse, a life curse perhaps, a cloud of misery that tails your soul, so porous it reaches down even as you dream to leak its corrosive venom? Well, then you know a fraction of what it's like to be Nina Mazursky, cause damn, this girl deserved better, but only ever received the worst. We finally had the finale of Creature Commandos players. After a long 6 weeks, our first installment of the DCU has commenced. With that, inevitably comes answers to questions we have long had, or was that the case? Did we get the answers we sought out, or are there still more questions than ever? Did Creature Commandos stick the landing? Is this a good first installment of the DCU? All that and then some coming up, but first, I would just like to say thank you to everyone who checked out my last video. That was the first video for the big year of 2025, and that is one of the best performing videos I've ever had. I think right now, as you're seeing this, it's probably at 10K views, which is insane for me. Okay, your boy doesn't just pull half of that out of his ass on a good week. Shit, not even a fifth of that, really. But thank you for helping me start this new year off with a bang. There's a good chunk more of you here now. So of those new players, welcome to the madness, and to all the beautiful players that have been here since way before 2025. And really everyone, let's just have a great year. So let's start that year with the end, episode 7, A Very Funny Monster. So we open up, pun kinda intended, with the birth of Nina Mazursky, which was met with complications. Her lungs being on the outside of her body. This immediately gets your heart in a vice grip, since anything to do with kids being hurt or in harm's way is gonna evoke emotion in most people, but the angle of health complication they take here with Nina, what that does to her and her parents, is what really digs and twists the emotional knife in. Her parents take two totally different routes when approaching their daughter's condition, where her father is doing absolutely everything he can to not only keep his daughter alive, but bring her up lovingly, whereas her mother goes quite cold on Nina, proposing that maybe he shouldn't be trying to extend what could be an extremely poor quality of life that would only lead to more and more suffering. I think it's less so to castigate a bad mother here, although I think that's fair to do with bad mothers and fathers, which I think the show has now shown us both instances, but also just to show how complicated these types of situations are, the types of hardships parents deal with that can get tremendously complicated. You certainly want to come off as a pillar of strength for your children, even when you're not, or you're worried and scared about a whole laundry list of things. You want to show your child, unwavering love, support, and resolve, but you're still a human being and have internal conflictions. Watching your little baby girl having to grow up suffering and doubting your emotional fortitude to persevere through this pain for the sake of your child, or the dark side of that, ending the suffering of that loved one because you love them so much. Because if it wasn't for the unforeseen procedure that Dr. Mazursky performed on Nina, she would have had to deal with this her whole entire life. So again, it's another situation of where the moral conflict is so great and complicated and effective. I seriously don't know how any parent does it, but even when he is able to cure her ailment through this like fish metamorphosis, and Nina is able to finally move and experience socializing, everyone is just the biggest piece of shit to her. She runs away from the world of men and to the ocean because she felt like she was such a burden to her father, but gets caught by authorities, and unfortunately, as he catches up to her to let her know just how unconditional his love is, he too gets caught by the authorities fatally as she gasps for air and is slammed into a tank, and while she can only watch as her father dies. That is how she ended up in Belle Reve. She never did shit and still had a Murphy's Law cloud hovering above her whole life. Anything bad that could have happened to her, but that just continues to deepen the emotional investment you have in Nina. She's been the sweet, timid one since the beginning, and we see that she's always been that. I was so curious, like, what crime could she have committed to land in Belle Reve? But damn, damn, it really was just being different. All the while, the Commandos are at the castle plotting to kill the princess on her daily swim. Just before that, Big Frank catches up to the crew and gets multiple caps popped in his ass by the bride. We got a little Ghost Rider reference here, a little plot point tease, and maybe a tease of a different kind. Yeah, I get it, Rick Flag. I get you, bro. She is fine shit, but unfortunately, that comes with being crazy. And the team is kind of fighting over who should be the one to kill her, and they decide on Nina, who is the most innocent of them all, but the water is her element. Now, as they hang on to this moment, Rick Flag teeters between conscious and unconsciousness. He is able to let Waller know about McPherson. That leads Waller and Economos to discover Clayface and the real McPherson's dead, calling off the hit, but too little, too late. As Nina gets closer to the princess, Weasel's PTSD, or at least some of it, gets triggered. He jumps into the water to try and save the princess. Now, I really like this because, again, it shows that the tragic incident that landed him in Belle Reve still affects him, but it also causes him to jump into the water despite already knowing, in whatever way Weasel can know, that he can't swim, you know. So at the detriment of his own life, once again, he tries to save this girl who's about to die, which obviously is antithetical to the mission, but it provided tension to the scene and reinforces how kind of good Weasel might be, even if he is just a mindless animal. But unfortunately, Nina, again, drew the short stick and got stuck multiple times by Alana. I was like, there's no way this bitch is this evil, okay? On the one hand, it's like, you know, she is about to get stabbed, so you get it, but the response is like insane. You got her the first 10 times. There was definitely more than I'm just trying to protect myself here. There was extra stank on those stabs and a little bit of enjoyment, you know, those damn evil glowing eyes, man. Nina, we didn't deserve you. But after all is said and done, Waller calls in to stop the assassination, and just before the Commandos leave, the bride puts two and two together and confronts the princess, letting her know essentially, yeah, I knew you were a bitch all along, revealing she saw her with Clayface on the monitors. So even with the promos from last week, the line, "Who is that?" intrigued me, and when we got the tease for the reveal earlier in the episode, I was like, who will that eventually be revealed as in the end? And as I counted down the time remaining in the episode, I got more and more eager for them to, you know, spill the beans. You know, are we gonna get to this? This was all a part of a pivot plan so she could discredit McPherson and make Waller not trust Cersei. We get some great character development as the bride sends a bullet straight through her forehead, and while dipping with the rest of the crew, she finally lets out some emotion. That was all for Nina. She actually cared about someone. She let herself care about someone, which was just really nice to see. We also hear Phosphorus mention that he hasn't been touched in 15 years, so that might even date the DCU Batman we get. But I think Gunn said he won't be old and pretty much David's age, so I'm thinking it's the case that Phosphorus might even predate Batman in this universe, which is interesting, but it's really more so another way in which his humanity has been disrupted. We get a tease for season 2 with the new team comprised of Nosferatu, which apparently that's who she was. Now, I have not read much on her, but she isn't in many books, and I think she's primarily a Superboy villain. Callus, who is from the Frankenstein Agents of Shade book that I've been telling y'all about, again, highly recommend. That's like primarily all that this character has been in. It's where he debuted, and he is pretty badass. Like, he has some pretty insane special moves up his sleeve, and that's by Jeff Lemire, Matt Kinn, and Alberto Ponticelli. Just great work. G.I., my boy, is back in his winter arc. The bulk has only just begun. Very glad G.I. is back. I always felt he would be back just because I'm sure they must have downloaded his consciousness at some point, or maybe they got Dr. Magnus for assistance with reconstruction. And finally, our new resident fish, King Shark. Very glad Anawe's back. Also, Frank is still alive, so I'm very excited for what season 2 holds. Now, it was 2 a.m. when I was watching this, players. I was sleep deprived like a mofo. I was waking up in another 3 hours to get groceries early. I was in fucking Niflheim in my mind. So I could only really parse out the emotional beats, which were very dope. But after I had a couple other watches of this episode, after a couple other hours of sleep, the story started to digest in my mind. And although I think the ending of the story felt a bit rushed, the twist, I have to say, was pretty good, because I was truthfully convinced it was Cersei's doing all along, and I was waiting for more Cersei and her plan to be revealed that never came. But I think over the season and in the episodes, how that was handled was done well. Like, I was constantly going back and forth between, is it Ilana because she's acting so weird, or is it Cersei who I know is evil? So although I don't think the twist is revolutionary, it was handled well. I do hope, since there will be less new characters next season, we won't spend too much time on backstories and flashbacks, and the main story will hold more precedence. And I'm hoping Cersei has some part in it. She is famous for turning men into animals, creatures, monsters even, so I wish we had seen her do more of that, and I do think she was underutilized, especially towards the end. I also would have liked to have spent more time with Princess Ilana as well as Cersei, maybe given an extra episode before the finale, fleshing out both of their their characters and backstories would have been great, making you doubt who's really behind everything constantly throughout the episode, adding to the mystery and the whole whodunitness of it all even more. So as far as season 1 of Creature Commandos goes, I think it stuck the landing, but by the skin of their teeth. It's a good show in terms of characters who are compelling, great art, dynamic animation and action. I really dug the Eastern European music and vibe, excellent color grading, humor and fun balanced with seriousness and sincerity, with a decent story that might have just tried to run too fast towards the finish. That's why season 1 gets a solid 7.5 out of 10. It's not touching X-Men 97, and it might be neck and neck with Invincible, but Invincible could fix that if they had better animation. Definitely worth a watch and something I plan on revisiting in the future, although I'd probably put this in last place on the scale of Gunn's projects. That's saying a lot because it's still pretty damn good and a solid installment for the DCU. So if anything, this makes me even more excited for the next DCU project, which is Superman, which is just insane to say. I think he really locked in for this one, and there's no doubt that James Gunn is capable of making us feel for characters, so I can't see anyone leaving the theater without Superman being your new favorite hero. Like, that's all I really hope for, is that Superman reaches the level that Batman is currently at in terms of like popularity and like mainstream relevance. He should be, right? Which I'm just so excited to feel that again. Bobby pills went off, and I hope they animate next season as well. Let me know your thoughts on the finale and the series as a whole, whether you liked it or not, and are you looking forward to season 2? That's it. If you liked the video, leave me a thumbs up, comment down below, and if you want, subscribe. I always appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope all of you guys are well, and I'll see you in the next one.